Welcome to LeBori Bridal Vault. My name is Oksana Mashiri, and today we have an amazing guest, Melinda Hoffman with Lasting Memories Floral Preservation. Melinda was our vendor at LeBori Bridal Expo, and today she is in our studio with her amazing products. Welcome, Melinda.
Thanks for having me. It's wonderful to see you again.
So, what is the flower preservation?
So flower preservation is the process of actually drying the flowers, removing all the moisture from them, and then they last. We frame them, we can put them in epoxy, we can put them in shadow boxes, but once they're in a sealed system, they will last forever.
Amazing. So do you use flower preservation only for weddings?
No, we do flower preservation for pretty much any event that has flowers. So birth of a baby, a wedding anniversary, sometimes we work with memorial flowers as well. Homecoming corsages are very popular to keep forever.
Wow, that's
Anything
amazing.
that has flowers, we can preserve them.
Fantastic. So Melinda, your product look amazing. How did you come up with the idea to start this business?
Well, it actually wasn't my idea. Lasting Memories was owned by a friend of mine. Her name's Laura. It's quite a story, but it is actually my favorite story to tell. Years ago, I stood up in a wedding in Canada, and when the florist handed me my bouquet, it was so beautiful that it took my breath away. And I just knew there was something special about these flowers. So after the wedding, I tried to cross the border with the bouquet, and Border Patrol said no. I had to throw the flowers out.
Oh no.
And I just couldn't do it. I could not physically throw the flowers out. They kept looking at me like I was crazy. Ma'am, you have to throw the flowers out. The inspection line was 3 hours long that night. And I looked at them and I said, I know I sound crazy. I promise you I'm a completely sane woman most of the time. I cannot throw these flowers out. Everything in my being was telling me I had to keep the flowers. So I actually told them to send me to the inspection line. He said, are you sure you want to do that? It is 3 hours long. And I said, yeah, I don't care. Just send me to the line. I have to keep these flowers. So they ended up having a little debate amongst themselves. They determined that they were cut flowers, so it was perfectly fine for me to cross the border with them. So I went across the border back to Michigan. I had the bouquet in my car thinking, oh my God, what is wrong with me? And the next day I went grocery shopping, still had the flowers with me. And that is where I ran into Laura. I hadn't seen her in a couple years. And we started talking, we did the girl thing, caught up on the last 2 years of our lives. And then I asked her, so what are you doing these days? And she said, I preserve wedding bouquets.
That was just meant to be.
Yep, it sure was.
Meant to be.
Definitely divine intervention.
So this is an amazing story. So what happened next? What steps do you take to get to this?
So what happened next is a little bit on the sad side. My grandmother passed away.
Oh.
And I was very, very close to my grandma, probably the closest relationship I had in my life. And all I could think about was I wanted to have something from her, even if it meant her flowers from her funeral. And so I reached out to Laura, asked her if she was still preserving flowers, and she was. And so she ended up coming to the funeral and waiting till the end of the service and took the flowers home and did the preservation. And about 6 months later, she met up with me again with the finished pieces from my grandma's flowers, and she made pieces for me and for all of my siblings. And in that conversation, I knew something had changed, something was different about her, so I asked her what was happening, and she said she was ready to give up the business. Move on to something different, and she was curious as to whether or not I was crafty. And
you were crafty.
I said, well, I like to think I'm crafty. What's happening? And she's like, I think I want you to have the business. I want to sell it to you. And so we negotiated a deal. She worked with me on financing. And so I paid her back over 2 years, and the business was mine after that.
That's absolutely a fabulous story. It was just meant to be from beginning to end. Melinda, right now competition is pretty high in a wedding industry. What sets your business apart from the other flower preservation businesses?
Yes, that's a great question. When we first started working with flowers in Lasting Memories, we were only one of 3 businesses in the entire state of Michigan doing floral preservation.
Wow.
Now that whole picture has shifted after the staying home and people wanted things to do. They started dabbling into floral preservation, and now there are countless businesses. So we've had to step up our game so that we could stay relevant. One of the things that we did was we went local with our frames. We found a local craftsman who comes to us. He's designed the shadow boxes. He also designed all of our floating frames.
That's amazing.
He'll do them in any color and in any size that we request. So all of our pieces are truly custom. And so these shadow boxes, he's got these designs that are a little more detailed. So they're very unique. You can't get this box anywhere else. And he can make the floating frame in that exact same trim. So
it's gorgeous. It's a beautiful conversational piece too, for years to come.
Yeah, the whole piece becomes a piece of art.
It's absolutely. So Melinda, that looks a little different, vintage. What is this piece?
Yes, so we've been in business for over 30 years. And so we've seen a lot of trends come and go. And this is just a wall frame. It is a vintage frame.
Beautiful.
A style that maybe you'd see on grandma's wall or great grandma's wall, depending on your age. But this trend has come and gone now in floral preservation. We used to have it be about 50% of our sales. Now it's maybe 10%.
So brides still ordering it?
They are still ordering it. And we're actually seeing it become a little bit more popular again.
What is this?
Oh, this is another, I would like to call the shadow boxes more of a classic style because they never really were trendy. They were sort of always there. We always have a segment of the population that want this classic look.
Is this also go on a wall, or
and
just
it can stand on a shelf. It's beautiful on a mantle, but it does have a hook in the back, so it can hang on the wall.
So now I definitely have to ask about this piece. I was eyeing it out from the beginning of our interview. Tell us more about this.
Yeah, so another trend that we started seeing was brides were wanting something that was useful. Paperweights are wonderful, you know, they serve a purpose. But when you have a large number of flowers, centerpieces, bridesmaids, bouquets, bigger things can be done with that. So these are Lazy Susans.
These are absolutely fantastic. Those are peonies. Gorgeous.
This will take the flowers and turn them into something that's more practical for everyday use. So a bride gets to enjoy her flowers every single day.
Absolutely.
In a practical way.
This is a piece can be enjoyed for years to come.
Exactly.
So what is this piece? It's a little different. What is this?
Yes, sometimes we don't work with flowers at all on our memorial pieces. So these are images of people or animals who have passed. And what I did was I just used transparency film, found a good photo that I liked, and then I printed them and then cast them in epoxy. This is actually my sister and her horse. Ashley passed away last fall, and she was such a special animal. I wanted to have a little piece of her too.
Beautiful. That's a beautiful piece of memory.
Thank you. So this piece I've talked about frequently. It doesn't have flowers, but this is my very dear friend, Leslie. Leslie and Roy got married several years ago. I was in their wedding, and I just love this picture of the two of them. Unfortunately, they have both passed on now, and so I keep this with me. I take Leslie with me to all my bridal shows and to all of my events. She was just such an inspiration to me. I miss her very much, but I want to have her with me at all of these floral events.
That's a beautiful story.
Thanks.
So Melinda, do you have any interesting stories from your clients? Something you would like to share?
Stories. I think my favorite one is a few years ago. We had a customer call us. It was shortly after everything had reopened, and she was in sort of a panic. It was after her daughter's wedding. She said, I have all these flowers, and I don't know what to do with them, but I definitely don't want to throw them out. And so I thought, well, okay, you can drop them off. And so we were doing no contact at that time, because I believe it was 2021. And so I gave her the address and gave her a drop-off time. And then she left. She texted me that she had dropped off the flowers. And I opened my front door, and she had brought me all the flowers from the entire wedding. We had 6 bridesmaids bouquets, the bride's bouquet, all of the centerpieces, corsages and boutonnieres, literally everything from the wedding. And so she and I began to talk over time about what she would like done. And she had so many flowers. She told me what she had spent on them, and then explained that that's why she couldn't stomach the idea of throwing them out. Wanted to turn them into practical pieces that could be used every day so that she got more bang for her buck. So over 3 years, I made pieces for her using those flowers from that original event. And at the same time, she brought me bouquets from additional weddings that had happened in her family. So we are probably 3 or 4 years now into our friendship that evolved from that very first wedding.
Very interesting. Bride usually throw bouquet to the lucky girl.
Right.
So where are these bouquets coming from? Does bride take it away back and preserving it, or what's going on?
Exactly. If I was a bride and I was traditional and I wanted to still do the bouquet toss, I would march myself right back to whoever caught the bouquet and let her know that she can't have them. It was all just for show.
So that's how it works?
I mean, it can work that way. There's a couple things happening. The traditional bouquet toss is kind of a dissipating trend. I'm not seeing it as much. But the biggest thing is, if a bride knows ahead of time that she absolutely wants to keep her bouquet, she just has her florist make a toss bouquet, a smaller version of hers, and that's what gets thrown in. And hers gets tucked away in a water vase, in the fridge, wherever it's safe and away from her guests, the food, anything that could cause damage to the petals.
That's good to know. That's good suggestions for our future brides. Melinda, why do people preserve flowers?
There are many reasons I think that people are drawn to flower preservation. One of the things we've already kind of talked about is when you have the expense from a wedding and you're spending thousands of dollars on fresh flowers, you definitely want to have a way to keep them longer than just the day of. And that's where the practical pieces come from. For memorial services, it's the same thing. There's an emotional attachment to the person who passed, and you just want something that gives you a little sense of peace or just that attachment to the person that you've just lost. One of the other reasons, and my favorite, is I have a son who has an incredible green thumb. I'm so jealous. He definitely didn't get that from me. And he's been planting flowers for me over the years.
Oh, that's amazing.
We've been in our home for about 15 years, and every year I get new flowers that are in the ground, and he nurtures them, and I preserve them now. So I've been making pieces that are all from my garden.
That's gorgeous.
Thank you.
So your son is pretty much a business partner, flower supplier.
Yes, for sure. So these are also from my garden, and that single purple rose is from a Mother's Day rose tree that my children bought me, and it just had a perfect bloom on my birthday, so my daughter preserved it for me.
Gorgeous. That's beautiful. Melinda, you have so many beautiful pieces here.
Thank you.
Obviously, they're absolutely gorgeous. My question is, how do you customize your pieces for each individual client? Obviously, there's limited amount of flowers, limited number of flowers. How do you make it personalized?
Yes, great question. We do see a lot of trends in colors of bouquets over the years. Last year, white bouquets, all white bouquets, were very, very popular. It's a little bit harder to differentiate when all of the bouquets are coming in with the same single color of flower. However, ways to make them different is a different style of frame or a different color, a different mat board, perhaps a shadow box, adding the wedding invitation, or even the save the date, anything that's different from one bride's day to the next bride's day. My favorite thing to do is pieces like this when we're working with epoxy. Our bride here to the right let me go on a little creative path rather than what the cookie cutter pieces look like, and we did the black background instead of a clear epoxy, and it turned out so dramatic with her fall colors. It makes the oranges and the reds and the whites really pop against the black, and those are my favorite ways to differentiate, adding pops of color either to the background or the crushed glass like this piece change the entire look of the bouquet.
So you're obviously listening to your clients' stories.
Yes, I do that as well. I love having consultations where I spend a few minutes on the phone. Back before 2020, when we used to do a lot more face-to-face, I would sit down in a coffee shop and meet with brides and moms all day long. And I would love to hear their stories. And sometimes they would have photos already from friends and family that had been texting. And I would just really try to get a vibe for what the day was like and where did the bride have her emphasis. And that helps me when I'm putting their final pieces together. I just kind of intuitively go back to that initial conversation and pull the vibes from it to put together their personalized piece.
That's fantastic. This way you can reassure that no two bouquets are the same.
Correct. Yep.
Melinda, as a business owner, I understand the importance of feedback of the clients.
Yes.
Do you ever hear from your clients after they receive their bouquets?
Yes, for sure. We absolutely hear back from people. Sometimes it's because they're in another wedding or they have an event in their family and they want to preserve flowers again. That's probably the most frequent way that we hear back from people, and it's just such a wonderful way for us to understand the effect that we're having on people's lives, because we're able to continue working with them on additional flowers in the future.
You have a gorgeous pieces here, and I would anticipate a lot of clients have questions. What is the best way to get in touch with you?
The absolute best way to get in touch with us. We are actually on all of the social media platforms, and we have a traditional website, but my favorite way is text messaging. It's the fastest way for us to respond to any potential customer. And then they can ask all of their questions in the text message. If that's easier for them, it's definitely easier for us.
Is there anything else you would like to share with our clients that will inspire them to use your services?
Yes. One of the things that we've run into over time is brides that didn't plan ahead to preserve their flowers, and then they get their bouquet on the wedding day and they fall in love and they don't know what to do, or they're hesitant because it wasn't budgeted. It's one more expense, and sometimes really struggle with that one last expense. My advice is it truly is the last expense, and you only have that limited time. If you're that in love with your flowers, you definitely want to keep them. We have a wide range of pricing. We have smaller pieces, we have larger pieces. Sometimes it's better to just keep a small portion of your bouquet if that fits in your budget, rather than struggle to have a much larger piece. But some flowers from the day, if you're that in love with them, I would highly recommend preserving at least that.
Absolutely, to have just a small piece of memory from the big day. Thank you, Melinda, for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having us, Oksana.
This was Oksana Mashiri with LeBori Bridal Vault. Stay tuned for next amazing episode.